Republican leaders right now are growing increasingly worried about the party keeping its majority on Capitol Hill. They're worried Donald Trump's struggling poll numbers might take vulnerable Senate candidates down with him. Now, according to these polls, take a look. The Senate is going to be won or lost in these handful of states. You've got Nevada, you got Pennsylvania, New Hampshire, North Carolina, Missouri, Indiana, and some even say Florida may be up for grabs. Right now, early predictions had the Senate split between Republicans and Democrats at an even 50-50. Fox News contributors Mercedes Schlapp and Leslie Marshall are back with me. You know, Mercedes, I'm always sort of perplexed by this. Now, I'm an independent, so I have no problem crossing the aisle, you know, for whichever candidate I may be voting for. But what perplexes me is, what is the thought here? Is that, you know, people are just literally going to make a big X through Republican or Democrat? Is it that some Republicans might stay home? I mean, they don't think that they can cross the aisle at all?
Well, it's actually a fascinating dynamic, I think, this election cycle, because of the fact that you might actually see the split ballot. It could be a person voting for Trump, but then they're mad at the senator who's running in let's say Nevada, for example. Heck, who's running in that state, for example, said that he was not going to be supporting Donald Trump. So they might get mad at them and not vote for Heck. But then you have the other case scenario in the Republican world where they say, I'm not voting for Donald Trump, but I'm going to vote for my Republican senator. And those are the two, I think, dynamics that we're seeing right now being played out in the Republican side. And that's what makes these Senate battleground states, so these battleground states with these senators up for grabs, these Senate seats up for grabs, very interesting, and to see what will actually end up on election.
You know, Republicans, they just haven't been willing to stick together. I mean, really, from the get-go, right? In this election, you know, we went through a miserable primary process. The media, of course, we loved it. But in terms of the country as a whole, they really got exposed to perhaps the worst side of politics, in that there were so many candidates taking so many jabs at each other, Leslie, that it really left a somewhat fractured party in the end. And Republicans just haven't been able to get their act together. And do you think it's going to cost them?
Oh, yes. I think it is going to cost him. I think it depends on what you look at. 538 has a Democratic takeover in the Senate at 73%. I don't always trust their numbers. Look, you need 4 seats, and it really looks like Wisconsin and Illinois are going to be in Democrat, column. Then we have to look at certain states. You just talked about the fragmentation in the party, and I think one clear example of that is in New Hampshire, where you have Kelly Ayotte, who has basically said, I'm for Trump, I'm against Trump, and I think it's actually confused voters. As a matter of fact, her competitor, Maggie Hassan, has done better this past week than she's done this whole election cycle. So I think we're seeing some of that coming out right now. You know,
perhaps part of Senator Ayotte's problem was that she, you know, on the one hand, she's sort of this John McCain protege and has been close to him and sort of traditional conservatives. On the other hand, Donald Trump's message was resonating like, you know, nobody's business there in New Hampshire. So how does she walk that line? You can't really walk it. I think, you know, what did Margaret Thatcher say? You know, you got to be on one side or the other, because if you stay in the middle of the road, you're going to get run over. And that's to a certain extent what has happened, in fact, in New Hampshire. Mercedes, just, I think, a day before the whole Billy Bush, Donald Trump tape came out, she was quoted as saying Donald Trump is a wonderful role model. And she was forced into saying that in part because she had gotten herself stuck saying effectively that he wasn't. What advice would you give to Kelly Ayotte right now as she tries to win the Senate seat in New Hampshire?
Look, I think at this point, and is what I think Kelly Ayotte should have stuck to in the first place, is the fact that she's an effective senator. She's very strong on the Foreign Relations Committee, and the fact that stick to the policies, stick to what works. This is, I think, where the Republicans have ended up focusing so much on temperament, tone, personality. Let's talk about the fact that the Republican solutions would be better for America. And I think that's where these candidates need to go. Enough with the Donald Trump part. Just stay focused on your race and say, look, this is what we need to work on. We need to keep a Senate majority with Republicans in order to ensure that we're able to push
Mike Pence has done this well, right? I mean, Mike Pence has sort of said, you know, look, Donald Trump's a little rough around the edges, but ultimately, who do you want in charge of the Supreme Court?
And go after Hillary Clinton's corruption. That's huge. I mean, I think that is an area where Republicans sometimes are so focused on criticizing Donald Trump. Instead of saying, OK, our goal here is to defeat Hillary Clinton, let's focus on the WikiLeaks, the corruption, the fact that it's a pay-for-play scheme, and really let the American people realize that we're going to put in the Clinton cartel in the White House if we move in that direction.
Leslie, what Mercedes is describing is effectively politics 101, right? Go for the enemy. Join forces. You're stronger together. Do you think they will learn their lesson should he not succeed?
I think they will, possibly. You know, I have to agree with Mercedes somewhat, okay, because this is politics 101. Democrats did this with Obamacare, right, with the Affordable Care Act, right? You know, I'm for it. I voted for it. Oh, don't remember I voted for it. You know, and I agree with you, Trish. You know, if you got to own it. If you're going to support that candidate, support that candidate. Mike Pence has done that. I don't support those words, but I still
He's done a
my teammate and my candidate or this
wonderful job
Trish,
walking that line. Go ahead, Mercedes.
Support the candidates, warts and all, okay? Like, that's how it goes.
Yeah, that's the only way to win.
Both flawed and imperfect. You know, at this point, you got to go and attack Hillary Clinton and go for and just understand that Trump is flawed, but he has the right agenda for America.
Mercedes, good to see you. Leslie, thank you so much.